Good morning, it's Brian. It is the Art of Startup War. It is another phenomenal day. Why is it a phenomenal day? Because we invested in another killer company. Again, we put a bunch of money into this company. We put the bunch of money in for two reasons. Number one, because phenomenal entrepreneur running the company, tremendous experience, great domain expertise. We liked it. Number two, we believe in low-code, no-code platforms. We believe that the future is evolving. It is coming to us in a way as like never seen before with a tremendous speed. And anybody in the developer community that is able to make life easier for companies and developers by providing a superior product is going to win. And that's why we put money into CloudPlex. And that's why we really like Asad. Asad, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Brian. Happy to be talking to you.
Wonderful. And so what I'd like to do, if we start at the beginning and we talk about CloudPlex. Now, we want to be able to get across to all of the developers and folks out there what exactly it does, so it's really clear. But we also want the investors to be able to understand the value that's behind it as well. So give us like just the first minute or two, the company, how it came about, what the reason for it was. Like, what was that moment where you're like, we need to build that? And then what specifically that you've built to solve which problem?
Yes, so I think I've been we discussed that before, but I've been a developer all my life. I have 24 plus years experience in development, and from Netscape, Intel, PayPal, Microsoft, and I've built large complex systems. One thing is that I've noticed that, and of course, during this course of 24 years, there have been many technological revolution that came. Like internet was the big revolution. I was in the middle of that. I was at Netscape. We were actually creating a revolution, right? And then, of course, this whole revolution of SOA revolution, web services revolution, technology after web revolution, technology after technology. And all these revolutions had impact on the world. However, in my 24 years of experience, I have never seen any technology which is more transformational than cloud native technologies. The cloud technology, the leading front of the cloud technologies, like containers, you're talking about container orchestration, you're talking about serverless, you're talking about service mesh. That is fundamentally transforming how the business is done. Just like internet transformed how business is done, just like web technologies a few years ago transform it. But this transformation is much bigger. At the same time, it is the most complex set of technologies that I've ever seen in my 24 years of life. And the problem is, Brian, that when the technology is complex, it creates a lot of problems. The proliferation time is actually a very long time because of the complexity. 10, 15 years it takes for these technologies to be embraced at every level. We have seen it happening before. And that creates, haves and have-nots. It actually creates divisions in the developers. You see a very large, I would say 95% of the developers struggling with the technologies. 5% of developers maybe, or even less. They got the opportunity, they learned these things. And same thing I'm seeing happening in the industry. You have the industry Goliaths like Google and Amazon, and they hired the best technologies, and they have unfair advantage over the rest of the enterprise. So because of this complexity of the technologies, because how important these technologies are, and because how complex these technologies are, it's really creating a huge problem. So I was at the Microsoft. I actually saw it firsthand. I saw the developers struggling with these technologies when the cloud and cloud native technologies came in, and I said, I got to solve this problem for the developers, because I have been the developer. I have lived through this pain myself, and I said, okay, look, everybody is solving operations problem, if you look at Amazon, if you look at Google, if you look at AWS, if you look at IBM, everybody's solving operation problem. It's a huge problem. Nobody is taking care of the developers. Developers are struggling. Developers today not only have to write their application, business applications, the code for their business application, but they also have to write infrastructure code. And this is which really is creating a lot of problem. This is where all this haves and have-nots is coming, because developers are not geared up. They're not supposed to be writing these infrastructure codes. So that was my aha moment. And I said, you know what? I was not born to write infrastructure code. I was born to write application code. I was born to write to develop creative problems, solutions for these business problems. I was born to solve this huge, big, complex problem. Why am I have to be stuck with this infrastructure code? Why am I have to solve the infrastructure problem? That's the whole genesis of CloudPlex. We said, okay,
beautiful. And you know what? You make me look like I'm not passionate. You are the most passionate developer that exists anywhere. Full stop. Nobody else is more passionate about this. By the way, how big is this problem? If we're talking about developers, like how many developers in the world, more or less? Are we talking thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, or tens of millions that are facing the problems of just over complexity within the new cloud technologies?
So there are more than 13 million developers out there in the world. 13 million. It's a huge space. Developers, look at what happened in the last 10, 15 years. Developers have taken the center stage. And they are the ones which are actually driving a lot of things. I was just talking to some a very senior executive. One of the companies, I don't think it's appropriate for me to name the companies.
That's okay.
He came from AWS, and he was very senior executive there also. And the company that he went to is a traditional enterprise. And I was just asking him, how do you feel the shift in the culture when you used to work for Amazon? And he told me that, Asad, these new enterprises are going through a cultural transformation also. So, Brian, we're not talking about just a technological transformation. That is there. These enterprises are going through a cultural transformation. Developers are taking the central role now. They are driving because technology is now driving the business. So that's why 13 million developers, more than 5 million developers in US, it's a big problem. An average developer in US, I'm talking about the cloud native developer, maybe, at the cutting edge, average cloud native developer costs $150K per year, average. And I'm on the very, very conservative side. 150K loaded cost, right? Now, if this developer spends 40% of his or her time dealing with the infrastructure issues, 40% of 150K, you're talking about,
and you know what?
A lot of money.
Not only is it a lot of money, but actually what you're telling me here is that, Brian, it's not really that relevant how many developers there are. What's much more relevant are the amount of companies that these developers are touching. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of companies that are overspending and wasting time because they're not taking the most efficient way of being able to build their cloud systems. So I think it's highly interesting. So what did you do then? You realize this is a huge problem. You realize that trillions of dollars are being wasted every single year by these companies. You realize that there has to be an easier way by building at least a foundation that would be able to cut out a lot of the time that these folks are wasting. How did you go about building it?
I'm a very big fan of Andy Grove. He was one of the founding CEOs of Intel. Andy Grove once said, I used to work for Intel. He was the CEO back then. Andy Grove once said that if you know exactly what are you going to do, if you know exactly the problem you're solving, if you know exactly what the solution is, you're already too late. So I quit Microsoft and I said, I got to solve this problem. but I did not know what to do about it, right? So that was my.
By the way, I love that. Are you sure you weren't Irish in a previous life? I love that. You know, that is the greatest of all bravery statements. Because you realize the problem was so large it had to be fixed. You know
Absolutely.
your own genius. You know your capabilities. You know that you've got 25 years of making some of the greatest meals that have ever been cooked by putting the best ingredients in from all of the different layers of development that you've needed to do. You know that the greatest meal that you haven't yet cooked is still
Yes.
out there waiting to be put together. But you need the time to solve the problem before going out, because if it's ready to be solved, it means there's 50 other people out there who are about to do it as well. Brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the problem. See, the thing is, Brian, that it took us a while. We knew this is a problem, but it took us a while to come up with a solution. You see, the problem is staring in front of you. But how to solve this problem? There are so many different ways to solve this problem, and I'm seeing a lot of companies are trying to do that. But one of the things that we learn is that the core issue is the infrastructure code that developers have to write. The core issue is that it's taking away from their from their job. The core issue is that we make them learn these things which are not really adding a lot of value to the bottom line of the enterprise. And another problem is that this is such a bleeding edge technology. Is constantly changing. It's not that you learn something today and you can live. It's every 6 months or so, a totally new version comes up, new set of features comes up, a new technology pops in. So that then the developers are constantly in that flux. So that's why we said that, okay, the low code idea was just that. Take this away from the developer totally and completely. Don't make it just easy for them. Just make it unnecessary and irrelevant for them, and say, focus, dude, you got to focus on developing your code and application. That's your job. We're not making it easy for you to learn it. We are making sure that you don't have to learn it. It's a low code solution. We are giving you a visual interface, a drag and drop interface. Everything that you had to do, create all these artifacts and use YAMLs, your help, let the platform do that. It's not your job to do that. It's not your job to even worry about these things. So that's the approach we took, which is a very unique approach. A lot of companies are, building a solution, but they are coming up another abstraction on top of Kubernetes or service mesh, and they're telling developer, learn our tool, which is easier than Kubernetes. I think that's this whole approach is a DOA, because if I'm a developer, if I have to learn anything new, I would learn a standard technology rather than your proprietary technology. So we took the learning totally away from the equation. We're saying, hey, do what you are best good at doing, do what you're hired for, do the job, and let us worry about these things.
And then you built it.
Of course, we built it.
And how long did it take you to build it?
Well, it went through some iterations, and we have been engaged with the developers from day one. I was a developer myself, the team, and we are using our own dog food. We are actually building solution with our own platform, and then from day one, we have been engaged with the developers, and our motto is exactly what the motto of GitHub is and Atlassian is, that developer is the king. Build developer communities, let developer use it.
Nice.
And don't worry about it. It's like, don't worry about money. The money will come automatically. Mm-hmm. Make developers happy. Make sure that you're solving their problem. And this is how GitHub become a multi-billion dollar company. Atlassian is now $14 billion company. It's such a small company, startup. Yeah. So that's exactly what we're doing. And we build the solution, and we are building a developer community. Developers absolutely love it. They're using it. they're building application, they're using it to test their application, diagnose and troubleshoot their application, and we are getting great feedback. It took us almost like 2 years to come to that level of perfection that we are at. It went through few iteration, but I think in the current form, the solution that we have, absolutely, developers absolutely love that solution.
Brilliant. And then so you got the solution finished, you brought in your first developers. What was the feedback that you got from your first developers?
So all the KPIs, and we are actually very closely tracking these APIs. How many how many developers are using it, how much time they are spending it, what are they building with it, how many applications they have developed it. I don't want to bore you with all the statistics, but all these indications are showing us that that it is finding great traction in the market. The developers are loving it, and they are spending time actually building application. So we have hundreds of applications being built on it, and they have been deployed. Right. More than 20,000 hours every week is being used by this developer. They spend more than 20,000 hours every week on our platform. So definitely a lot of you. And by the way, I'm not saying that the product that we built on day one was perfect. We got a lot of feedback and input from the developers, and we have been making improvements based on the input and feedback. A lot of these new features that we have added came from the feedback from the developers. We basically, as the developers, tell us what you hate about it, tell us what you love about it. And then based on the feedback, we actually keep improving a product. So that's a strategy that we have taken from day one.
Brilliant. And then so you've got to the stage now where you have how many developers using the platform?
Actually, it's more than 1,500 developers who are using it. We are going
Excellent.
we are going for quality developer, Brian. We are not going for because we want developers who are actually serious about building these applications, who are actually engaged and who are building these applications. But what we are expecting that by end of this year, we'll have more than 10,000 developers using it. And the idea is for us to grow to 100,000 developers. And I think that is not a impossible goal. That's a very, very doable goal. And I think by next year, we will have 100,000 developers using our platform and building applications.
So if we look at the monsters in the space, like folks like GitHub, how many developers do they have?
GitHub has definitely, they have been around longer, and they have a huge marketing muscle behind it.
Yeah.
And so they have over a million developers millions of developers who are using it. So that is the idea, right? We are following that track. What we are
Beautiful.
We want to be able. So, Brian, I just want to make one thing very clear. We have done all of that without doing any marketing. Without even buying a single keyword, without any marketing campaign on any social media or anywhere. Because we wanted to make sure that we have a market fit, we have the product that developers love. Now we are ready for growth.
I feel like you're ready as well.
Absolutely.
I love watching you like this because I see a man who's like coiled up and you're ready to go. You're ready to go. The race is going to start. It's 100 meters. You're down. You're at the start line. And now you're saying, okay, let's go and get users. So what's that going to look like then? I think the vision is so clear and it's so obvious. Look, there's nowhere in developer language that says that they want stuff that's more complicated. There's too many things to do. Developers actually, in a weird way, have the same problems that we normal humans have, right? In that we now have so many different mediums of communication, so many ways, we're overwhelmed, right? Developers are the same. They now have so many things they need to learn, so many different options as far as actually what clients are looking for, that they're overwhelmed by the amount of things that are out there. And anything that has the word simplicity, or the word quicker, or the word easier, they love, right? This is no longer the land of, oh, I want to show what incredible skills I have because I'm a developer. No, this is the land of, I'm the most efficient developer that lives under the sun because I'm able to be smarter than anybody else out there by utilizing what's available to me, right? And this is why I love what CloudPlex have built and what you have in place. And now it's just a question of, you have 1,500. That's a great base of developers. Now, as you've said, it's about getting it up to 10,000 developers and then getting it up to 100,000 developers and having those developers loving what you're doing. You will keep them forever once you bring them on. And I know you haven't raised that much money. You've put a tremendous amount of sweat capital, sweat equity, sweat everything in yourself. Obviously, we took a bet on you because we feel that you have got a tiger by the tail here, and we're going to stick with you all the way through. But what are you going to do this year? Are we going to do a nice raise?
Yes, we are. That's our goal. Our goal is to raise 1.5 million seed round, and we want to use most of the money on marketing, on growth. Growth is foremost in our mind. We have already a platform. We use our own capital, we use our sweat capital, our own money to actually build the platform, test it out, do a market fit. So that's all there, and we have good traction. The only thing which we don't have is the marketing muscle, outreach to these developer communities, and we know where the developers live. Like you have KubeCon, which is a conference. The last time I was there in 2019 in San Diego, there were 30,000 developers, right? Wow. And then, in a single roof, right? And they're all Kubernetes developers, cloud native developers. Brian, 76% of enterprises have already adopted or are using cloud native technologies, Kubernetes and Docker and all this thing, right? So we are talking about, and I was just reading the marketing report. It basically says 500, and this is astounding. I had to read it like 3 times to believe that. They're saying that 500 million new apps will be built in the next 5 years, and most of them, vast majority of them will be running on Kubernetes. Huge. So we're talking about all new application. This is how the new applications are going to be built. This is how this is going to be the mainstream. This is not a distant future we're talking about. Already 76% of enterprises are adopting it. And they are having problem. You know why? Because they are having problem because they need standardization. They don't want, if you are an enterprise, Brian, if you're a CEO of the enterprise, CTO of the enterprise, do you really want 30, 40 different tools in your organization?
No.
Every developer is using? This is what it's all about. These cloud technologies, Kubernetes and Docker, they give you a standard solution for your business problem. Whether your problem is, whether you are your HR problems, whether your marketing problem, whether you, you can build pieces of solution based on that instead of these siloed application that used to be, and and average these enterprises, they have hundreds of these applications and at least 20, 30 different technologies. This is killing the enterprise. This is about standardizing. This is making these compete in the market, right? So this is what we are adding the value for the enterprise is this. It's like, okay, we are going to give you a standard set of tools. You can solve any of your business problems. You don't need super duper specialist, Kubernetes specialist, go compete with Google, go compete with Amazon, and go after those, few people who know these technologies, or spend hundreds of millions of dollars retraining your team, which you have been developing. What we are saying is you don't need any of that. Use your existing developers. They are good. They have been solving your problem. Don't have to do any of that. We are taking care of, through the low code, through the no code, we are taking care of the infrastructure code.
Makes a huge difference. And then so you're going to see them go up to about 10,000 first of all, and then up to about 100,000 afterwards.
Yep.
Like how much
Yes.
revenue can be driven from this? Where can you go to? Is this a market whereby
Yeah.
you can get your revenue up to, 100,000 a month, 500,000 a month, a million a month, 10 million a month? Like what,
So
what are we
our
looking?
goal is by 2025 we would be we would be 100 million ARR, and
Wow.
the path to that is is very very quick in the sense that I think we are ready for growth. So I think by by February March, if we are able to raise, it depends on how quickly we're raising the money. We should be able to reach 1 million ARR very, very quickly. We're talking about months.
Yeah.
And then going from 1 million ARR to 10 million ARR should not be a big problem. It's because once you are after the developers, once developers beginning to use you, and you get in front of these developers, you're going to KubeCon, you're going to DockerCon, you're going to Google Next. Once the word gets out, these enterprises would definitely want to use it because it makes sense for them to use. They are going to save billions of dollars. It'd be totally insane for them to insist that I want my developers to do all these things manually instead of doing visually through a low-code solution.
Very helpful. It makes
That's
sense.
Yeah, you talk about low-code solution, right? Why do you think low-code solution is, and I'm not talking about just in Kubernetes space, in other spaces also. It's because of that, right? It's
Yeah.
because it is giving you already the solution. And it's doing two things, actually. I mean, it's not just saving you time to market, but it is giving you standardized solutions to
Very
standard
important.
problem.
And it's not necessary because 95% of everything that's put on that base level is exactly the same anyway. So why do you need
Exactly.
to do it 100 times over? Now, I think it makes a huge difference. Can you maybe help with some of the investors? Because people are listening to this and there will be people who are developers and people who say, I totally get what he's doing. I understand what he's doing. It makes a huge amount of sense. I want to check the code and make sure that this is all good and that it is everything that he says it's going to be. But other than that, I understand the market. I understand the size of the market. I see where it can go. And then we'll have other investors who are listening and they're thinking, very interesting. We understand 100% about why you're doing what you're doing, but we're not experts within the development space. What type of examples do you have of other companies that you're following in the footsteps of that have become multi-billion-dollar companies? But like something, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're so right, Brian. So you guys, the investors, you have missed big boats, right? Like for example, when Google came 10 years ago, the investors said, "What's the value in that?" We have, when Google came in, there were like 12 search engines.
Yeah.
Some of them, there was like you probably don't even remember, like Lycos.
I actually
what it
do.
is?
I do remember them, unfortunately. Oh man, I wish I didn't. I wish I could say I was too young, but I do.
But like there are all kinds of 12 search engine, and when
There
Google
were so
comes in,
many. There were so many,
Yeah.
and they decimated them. And they decimated them through
Absolutely,
user experience.
because you know why? Because they had the right technology,
Yeah.
and they focused on what the people want. A
better
the
experience.
page rank algorithm that Sergey and all these things. And all of a sudden, you're typing a query, and you're getting the result that you want. And before that, you were getting total junk, 99% of the junk. So you missed that board because you just were not able to, understand that technology, how powerful this technology is, and how is it going to change the world. So there were many, like Facebook came up, and like, okay, this is like a bunch of college kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like they're sharing pictures of each other. So the point is that these technologies, cloud native technologies, this Docker, and these technologies are transformative technology. The world is changing, guys. All the applications from now on. Okay, let me ask you this. How many applications that are built today are desktop-based application and not web-based application? Zero.
Yeah.
It was 10, 15 years ago that 100% of the applications that
100%. Yeah.
were desktop application. And then all of a sudden, web applications were born in a company called WebLogic. Paul Ambrose was a visionary. He said, I'm going to tell the world how to write a web-based application. And then voila, today 100% of the application. That's what we're talking about here. It's a total transformation, guys. It's how every single application is going to be built. And we are enabling that, right? I know that it's, AI is a buzzword, and and all these things, the machine learning but this technology enables them. There is no AI without cloud technologies. There is no blockchain without cloud technology, guys. This is the mother technology.
I love that. Oh, and also you use the term mother. And this is so great because what's happening is all of the investors are following babies. And you're saying, why are you following the babies? You don't know what they're going to become.
Yes.
Follow the mother. With the mother, you have as many babies as you want. They're not going anywhere. You have to go after the mother. So you're going after the mother or the mothership. You are saying, I want to be the creator of everything that is built on top. Like everything is going to go on top of us. Why would I want to risk something on one application over there? This is exactly why we invested in you. It's exactly why I love what you're doing so much. You give me a genius developer who is an excellent entrepreneur, who has tremendous domain expertise. Give me an idea whose time has come. Show me a world that is changing with a different mentality, which came in like 3-4 years ago. In some ways, we were lucky this wasn't done before because this has been coming for a few years. We are right on the edge of this right now, right on the edge of it. But nobody's seen it because they've been so focused on trying to keep up with what's happening. And you now have a head start. Now, I want to finish this with two things. I want to make sure you share. And this has been a great podcast, super high energy. And what it says to investors listen, this isn't a hobby. You're not going to come up with another idea next week and say, you know what? I've been thinking about that whole idea. I don't think so. I'm going to do car sharing. No. This is Asad's legacy. This is either going to happen or he will be disappointed for his whole life. There is no walking away from this. This is the one. And if you don't hear that from the podcast, then I'm on a different planet from where everybody is right now. So I want you to speak, just to finish out the podcast. Give everybody your email so they have your details so investors are able to contact you as well. And then I want you to finish it by speaking to how you see the world and where you see the world in 3 or 4 years' time, and speaking backwards from this already having been implemented as the main technology. But most importantly, there will only be one question that investors have on their tongue right now, and that is, how defensible is this? So you have to defend how you've managed to get to where you are in 5 years' time, why the competitors have not been able to break through, and what you have become. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, let's give them the email first. The email first, and then let's finish it there.
Yeah, so Asad at cloudplex.io. My name is spells ASAD, Asad at cloudplex, CLOUDPLEX.io. So Asad at cloudplex.io. That's my email, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question that you may have. This technological revolution is starting, and it has taken off already. But in the next 5 years, you will see a total transformation of the businesses. End of a story. The way, just like internet, when internet came in, there was there was nothing online. The banks. Now today, I do most of my, I would say 90% of everything, all my business, banking and shopping and what have you. It's all online now, right? That's the kind of transformation we are talking about here. So in 5 years, you would see, you talk about how you have these technologies. You look at the mobile technology and you take your Apple phone and you go and you bring it closer to the pay point, and in bloom, click, something happened and it says, oh, the payment, you just made the payment. What do you think is happening in the background? Something is running in the cloud, guys. This app, this mobile phone has only the front end. The magic is happening in the background, in the cloud, right? When you think about it, what happened when you take out your app and hail an Uber cab? What do you think happens? Everything is happening in the background. As soon as you bring your app, a container pops up somewhere in the data center, in the cloud, and says, oh, this is Asad. Here's the profile. Let me send you all the information. And then you say, okay, hey, where do you want to go travel? And then all of a sudden, it says, oh, this is your your location. Let me show you what's going on around you, how many cabs and how many cars around you. Everything is happening. All these are microservices, guys. Netflix that you see, all this watching movie is scalable. That solution has, because Netscape has adopted container technologies 5 years ago. Those techno companies who are ahead of time, they have adopted these technologies and they are benefiting from it. In 5 years, you will see tons and tons of these companies adapting these. Today, Netflix does not have any competitor because they have 5 years edge, or Uber, or Airbnb. It's like all of that is based on that. If you look at the list of the companies. Google, the entire Google Map, Google Cloud, Google Gmail, everything is based on containers, right? In the next 5 years, everybody, all the enterprises are going to be using containers and microservices. And the developer tool will be one of the most critical things. And the low-code solution, which is actually enabling millions of developers. There are 30 million developers, as we talked about before. And only
but how can you hold other people off in the moat? That's where I want to finish. How can the investors listening, because I think they're already convinced on the fact that this is going to be a massively important part of the cloud. But how do we make sure that Asad and CloudPlex wins this war?
We win this war because we have taken a very different approach. We've taken a path which is different, and we have taken a path that has been proven to be successful by companies like GitHub and Atlassian. However, in this particular space, nobody has yet taken, right? Everybody is thinking about making things easier for developers or coming up with a different solution. What we have taken is we are saying that, look, this is not how I have been a developer all my life, guys. I know how developers think. I know what developers want. I know where the pain points are. So this is the solution by the developers for the developers, which is going to actually win over, because already we've been hearing from people. We have not had the opportunity to actually get the solution present. But we have a good size of developer community, which is telling us that they absolutely love it. So that is what I'm saying, that the solution is right in front of you. This is what the developers want. Those who have used it, they absolutely love it. We just need to scale it out.
Right. So you're
We're
like,
here to grow.
This is it. You're like Keanu Reeves. You feel the need for speed. That's all. The time is now. Investment needs to go in. Even if an investment doesn't go in, you're still going to build it up to 100,000 users and beyond. The only difference is it will take you a tiny bit longer. So look, investors, you have Asad's details here. You know exactly what he's doing. If you have never worked in the development space, I am sure you know people who do. He would welcome you bringing in somebody independently to have a look at it and actually showcase how brilliant this particular piece of technology is. We invested. We are looking forward to invest again. Nobody I have more pleasure in knowing. And I would just say for everybody who's interested, make sure you reach out to Asad. Asad, it has been a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for joining us. I couldn't be happier that we're on board with you.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You're the only person in the world known to me who's more passionate than I am.
It's a draw. I didn't win. It's a draw. Okay? It's like England against Italy before the penalties. It's a draw.
Let's not go there. Let's not even talk about it.
To be continued. Everybody, you're watching a unicorn in progress. Take note.